Everybody comes to marriage with expectations. Question is, do they know what those expectations are?
Wow.
Usually, they have not clarified what those expectations are to themselves. And yet, they expect their partner to not only know what those expectations are, they also expect their partner to meet those expectations. And even when their partner is making an effort, the partner gets frustrated because...
Hello, and welcome to another amazing episode of TMC, where we are here to help you take your relationships
from surviving to thriving. If this is your first time joining us, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of these amazing episodes. And always remember, sharing is caring.
Today on TMC, we have a special guest, Miss Modupe Ehirim with The Right Fit for Marriage.
My name is Modupe Ehirim. I'm a Nigerian. I am 64 years old. I'm a marriage educator and a counselor. This is my third career. I have been an engineer first, and then I have been a bookstore owner. And in the last 7 years, I've been a marriage educator and a counselor.
Awesome. Modupe, how long have you been married?
37 and a half years now, and I've known my husband for 43 years rather. So in my country, when you complete your university education, you go to do a year's service to the nation. So my husband and I met. We had to do our year's service in the same organization, and there were a group of us. We met there and we became friends, and then of course, we started to date, and I think we dated for about 5 years. I was away to the UK for about a year and a half to do a master's program, and then I got back. Even before I went, we knew that we were going to marry one another. So we got married in 1985. We've been together since then. We have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. One girl is married. One boy is married. By the time my mom died, my parents had been married for 60 years and 4 months. So I'm their first child. So essentially it means that I lived with them for about 59 years. And it means if you say from about 11, it means that I had an opportunity to watch my parents do life together, saw them step on each other's toes and a lot of things. And then my mom was somebody who really spoke a lot. So she was very keen on you learning to live with other people that are different from you and stuff like that. So by the time I met my husband, I already was somebody who, knew to accommodate other people, and stuff like that. And then the church that I was going into was also way ahead of their time. So the premarital preparation program that we had added to that. So, they got us to discuss stuff like, would you sleep in the same bedroom? What if your mother-in-law doesn't like you? What if you don't have the kind of children that you wanted to have? So basically, myself and my husband came to marriage, already knowing we were not the same people. I'm not from the same ethnic group as my husband. So when my mom had that I was going to marry from this ethnic group, she went to meet her friends and she asked them, if somebody is a wife in your ethnic group, what does she need to know? How does she need to do? And she came back to me and, discussed all of this with me as well.
That's amazing.
So, and she spoke with my husband as well. So when we got married, when I look back now, is there stuff that I would change? I think the only thing that I still will change is that I wish that in addition to telling you all those things, people also just taught you the skills that you knew to do that. But generally, me and my husband were good. The areas in which we had major fights was in managing family finance. And that's because He was very knowledgeable about that, and I was totally clueless. My parents didn't know much in that direction, and so they didn't teach it to me. But so when people ask me, if you look back, is there anything that you'd like to change? It's a little tough for me because that actually got properly prepared for marriage. I had volunteered in church, to prepare couples for marriage. And we saw them about 8 weeks before they got married. And I was seeing things in them that you couldn't address, even though the curriculum took them through 14 hours with me. So I started to look back and say, okay, so what has happened? Why is this so? And I found out that a lot of times the exposure at home, the exposure in the community has not prepared them for life. So how do you create a course that is going to help anybody to understand that? So the platform that I felt would be very useful was the Facebook. So we created a closed group, and then people would say, so what are we going to do? I said, no, we just want to be here like we would be in an ordinary village. And so when we want to talk about an issue, the men will be there to talk, the women will be there to talk, the older people will be there to talk, the younger people will be there to talk, and we would have conversations around this. And one of the beautiful things that came out of it was that I remember, ladies would be saying, oh, we didn't know that men felt that way. Because for them, they had all kinds of paradigms about men. And then to see that there were men who were actually outside of that paradigm. So we started, my book, Marriage is Not a Trap, was actually the very first series of conversations that we had. I was just thinking, so what are 10 things that people quarrel about, married people, and everything. And I found out, so money, parenting, relating with in-laws, culture and tradition, how to resolve conflict, And so and then over a period of 15 days, we had conversations around this. And I would have people come to me in the DM crying, and telling me that they didn't understand stuff in this way. And the more that they talked to me, the more I realized that everybody comes to marriage with expectations. The question is, do they know what those expectations are?
Wow.
Usually they have not clarified what those expectations are to themselves. And yet they expect their partner to not only know what those expectations are, they also expect their partner to meet those expectations. And even when their partner is making an effort, the partner gets frustrated because all they're saying is, you're not meeting my expectation. The partner is trying to meet this expectation and doesn't know what it is. And so, so if you read the book, I opened it with a story about a couple that went to the village, and the lady was thinking, when we get to the village, after whatever it is that we're doing, we will go visit my parents. But she didn't say anything to her husband. And so her husband had other agenda. And when she then said, oh, I would like for us to visit my parents now that we've finished everything, he said, no, I have some other family meetings to attend. And she turned into her pillow and started to cry. Now, what was happening there? Her husband was not a bad man. When they were leaving Lagos, they had to drive 6 hours to get to the village. When they were planning for this trip, she didn't say one thing about that visit. She just assumed, if we're going to the village and you're going to see your parents, you should know that I would like to see my parents as well. So in that, what is happening? One, there is expectation that is not expressed, expectation that is unrealistic, expectations that is not harmonized. And so if we look at most marriage issues that there are, you can summarize them with all of that. So I wrote the book, even though I then talked about what are your expectations in all of these areas, but hopefully that the readers of the book would just be able to say, okay, what are my expectations? I mean, what am I expecting? So a follow-up to that, which is very interesting, is that in my pre-marriage preparation program, I actually have people write down, okay, what are 20 expectations that you're having of your partner? And what are 10 expectations that you think your partner is having of you? And you'd be so amazed at how very vague the expectations are. And sometimes I have people who can't even write 10 expectations. So the question to them is, if you haven't clarified for yourself, if you cannot express with clarity what you want from your marriage, what you want from your partner, how is your partner going to be able to do all of that? I mean, how is your partner going to know them first? And then how would both of you know what was realistic and what was not realistic? When you now throw into the mix the fact that, most of us grew up in homes where any appearance of difference in perspectives is assumed to be trouble. So, of course, when we start to live together and we're thinking about these expectations, then we get into trouble. So coming back to the Right Fit Marriage Academy, so I felt that, okay, what we should do in this community is just create a space where we actually live. When somebody says something and people begin to jump on it and say all kinds of things, I wait patiently. And then after the conversation has gone on for some time, I then say, okay, well, all of these things that you have said are right. But, what if we ask this person a question? When you read what this person wrote, what did you think they meant? And 9 times out of 10, what you think they meant isn't what they intended. So we learn that, okay, when I talk to you, the first thing you should do is clarify from me. This is what I heard you say. Is that what you intended for me to hear?
Yeah. Wow.
So over time now, the community has become a place. So when we started that way, I just would see people going to say to their friends, you've got to be in this community. You've got to be in this community. Come join this community, and that's how we grew. But I'm so glad because I get to meet people every day, who say to me, thank you so very much. I don't talk in the group, but I've learned so much from you. So yeah. We have divorcees, we have widowed people, we have single mothers, we have all kinds of people in the group. So everybody listens to one another and learns from regardless of what we're talking about. If we're dealing issues with singles, we did something once, and we then said, how did you meet your spouse? And it was a very long discussion thread as people were saying how they met their spouses. And then we did another one. So what made you decide that this is the person that you're going to marry? And everybody was just surprised that there is no formula. People met in as many places as there were human beings. And the criteria for choosing were so unlike what, you would think were the criteria, it just was a very interesting experience for me.
Wow. You said a low full. I'm sitting here on my phone just taking notes. I mean, this is so enlightening so far. Thank you.
Yes, I definitely have sat over here in awe and realized that so much of what you have already said. I took a note that if we can't express, that was something that stood out to me. If we can't express or clarify our own expectations, how can we expect someone else to meet them? And as you shared the story that you opened up the book with, Marriage is Not a Trap, I thought about myself and how in so many instances in the past, I have did that exact same thing. Like I didn't verbalize, I didn't say it, I didn't even mention it, but it's like I expected that this was going to happen. Like, okay, we're going to the store, we're going here, then we're going to do this, do that. Oh yeah, we'll stop by here, and just expected that Cedric would know that, right? So when I think about that in regards to our needs, our feelings, our emotions, or what we desire in a relationship, if we don't express it, and if we can't clarify what it means, how much more difficult is it for your spouse to give it to you?
One thing that did help us in our marriage, when I told her I told her, I said, Shante, I'm not your enemy. I'm not your enemy. I'm just trying to understand. I'm not your enemy. And so now, even those thoughts that comes into her head about what's going on, she tell herself, okay, he's not my enemy. She have to constantly repeat. I don't know if you still do this.
Still do it.
And so this happened, this conversation was over 7 years ago, and she's listening TMC 7 years ago, and she still to this day oftentimes have to say, okay, Cedric is not my enemy after this. I mean, we have a podcast. We're interviewing.
I have been married for 27 years, and I still have to remind myself that Bonnie is on the same side as you.
Yes. Yes.
That's amazing.
Absolutely.
And thank you for sharing that, because here's the thing. I think a lot of time us in these positions, marriage, and, we're in leadership and we're teaching, people don't think we have to use the same tools that we use. And what's bad about social media on Instagram and all this stuff, people are not talking about that. And so people thinking there's something wrong with them, not realizing that you are totally normal. You are normal. You're normal to have these thoughts in your head, but you don't want to share the thoughts, which makes the situation worse because you don't want to share.
It was just, I just appreciate so much of what you shared. Yes, and I do thank you for going deeper with that, because it is something that I still have to do today. And it's something that also helps me to clarify what he's sharing, what the expectations of the conversation is, right? Instead of me creating some story and idea of what it is versus what it really is.
Yeah.
And so as I thought about that, also jumping back a little bit, when you said that you were prepared from the very beginning for marriage and relationship and to do life with other people, but there was still one aspect, which was the financial part, that your parents couldn't give you because that wasn't something that they had, worked out well or was doing well. And I thought that's one of the things that I wrote down as well, because I thought that was interesting, that although we can be prepared for a lot of different scenarios, there could still be something that we're not fully prepared for. And I love that you clarify for us and put it on the table, because we do think every time conflict arises, we think, just like Cedric said, like, oh, you were on opposite sides. You're my enemy. You're the adversary. You're against me. When conflict simply means that there's more to be discussed. There's more to be clarified. There's more for us to dig into. There's more to be expressed. And the last thing before, if Cedric has something else, was you saying to the couples and to the people that this is what you said, this is what I received. Is that what you intended for me to receive? I know for myself, it took years before I ever did that one time. Like, this is what I heard you say. Is this what you meant? Right. And it was like all these years that there was conflict, because you said one thing and my thoughts were that you meant something else. And it's like, no, that's not what I meant. I said XYZ, and this is what I meant. And just getting clarity. So the thing I've heard you say multiple times is clarity. And I think in relationships and in marriages, as we grow as individuals, sometimes that is the problem. We don't have full clarity what we want or need for ourselves. I also wrote that down. And let alone being able to express it to someone else, because a lot of times that is where my frustration came from, because he is a question asker, well, what is this? This isn't asking the questions. But then I became frustrated, and then I put up walls because I feel like I'm being attacked. But the truth is I didn't have the answer, or I couldn't really articulate what I was thinking, what I was feeling, what I wanted. So then it was like, okay, there's opposition. This is a problem. We're on complete different sides of the team. When we're not, it's just me understanding first what I need, what I desire, and being able to share that with him. So there's definitely been some nuggets.
Yeah,
for sure.
This is good. And it's so.
May I come in here?
Oh, please.
So another big assumption that we make generally is that we know ourselves. And what I mean by that is we know what has made us who we are. So I'll share an interesting illustration and then explain further. So I'm sitting in a Zoom meeting with a couple that I'm preparing for marriage. And, so the young man is saying to me, Ma, can you help us look at this situation? We're going back to Nigeria to have our wedding ceremony. And I've said that, she can keep her funds and, I will do all the expenses in Nigeria and when we get back, And all the young lady was hearing was, don't bring any money for the Nigeria trip. She was not hearing the keep your funds so that when we come back, we will use them for expenses here. And he was very perplexed, So I then said to her, why is it so important for you? Because she kept saying, I have to contribute to my own wedding ceremony. So I said, why is it so important to you? And the conversation went on, and it turned out that in her parents' relationship, her dad had weaponized money. So her dad was the chief provider, and if he wanted his way and her mom was disagreeing, he just held the funds.
It held the money.
So she had grown up with that, and she had unconsciously decided, I'm not ever going to allow anybody to do that to me. Now, here she was in this relationship with this wonderful guy who cared for her, who was doing everything. And that first thing that they were going to do together, she felt, I've got to make sure that he knows from the beginning, he cannot use money, So after the first question I asked her was, okay, I'm glad this has come out, and I'm sorry that this was your experience. I said, you've known this guy for a while now. In all the time that you have known him, has he related with you in that way? And then she paused and she said, no. And then I said, why are you responding to him as though he was your dad? That was when it dawned on her that in this relationship, as far as money was concerned, she wasn't seeing this person that she loved and wanted to marry. She was actually responding as though he was treating her the way her dad treated her mom. And, so when I say know yourself in my one-on-one marriage preparation program, and it's the reason I created another program, which you also know about, the Get Yourself Ready for Marriage program, because we found out that, do people really know themselves? Do they know why they do what they do? Do they know the profound impact that their upbringing, the environment in which they have lived, do they know how much it has shaped the beliefs and perspectives? Do they know how much they have picked up from social media? So essentially, when they're in a relationship, are they relating with their partner as he is or as she is, or are they relating with them through the filter of the paradigms and perspectives that they have picked up over life and which is unconscious? And so I'll share a second story again, to help the listeners quite understand it. So there was this other lady who also was being prepared for marriage. And then she said, so they were doing, how are you going to manage your finances together, and everything. And she says, oh no, he's just got to be the person who is going to do everything. And we were perplexed because both of them were medical doctors. I mean, why would you say that? And then she said, no, if he's not man enough to do all of the finances, then, so on further probing, because we asked them to think about their history, and things like that, it turned out that her own parents also, her dad was working, and then he had some problems at work. And so her mom became the provider. And by some quirk of fate, I think her father just began to leave everything. And again, she just made the decision that, well, my mom was not smart enough to have missed this. I won't let it happen to me. So again, to help her see, we had to start throwing questions at her. And, one of the questions we asked is that, okay, if this guy is ready to do everything that you've agreed and you people start, What if he falls really ill and he's not able to earn again? What if he loses his job and it takes a while? And as we ask those questions, you could see the struggle in her eyes, because she could see that what we were saying was real, but she was also really afraid that it might just be a slide down into the situation that her mom had to live. And so over time, sometimes some of this trauma will be revealed, and we may have to say to them, this has happened. You need to go get it addressed, because this person that you want to marry grew up in a different household. Now, the classic case is if you now have somebody who was brought up by a single mom, who has seen women doing everything, and you now have a woman whose father has not been so good, and who is rebelling and saying there is no way that I'm going to. Both of them don't even know that that is in their history. So when they sit down to discuss family finances, it looks as if they're not agreeing about money. Has nothing to do with the money. Has to do with the fact that they're not even aware of what has shaped them. And we've looked at money, so you can look at parenting, you can look at relationship with in-laws, you can look at the church we're going to go to or the religion we're going to adhere to, you can look at career, and there is just all of these things in the background that the couple usually are not even conscious of.
Wow. I mean, you definitely have unlock some doors in my mind today, and make definitely I'm sure that every TMC listener will feel the same, because you've shined a spotlight on a lot of things that we miss, that cause sometimes conflict or causes issues in our relationships, in our marriage, or even in us preparing for relationships and marriages that we're unaware of. Modupe, I mean, definitely today, the Right Fit Marriage Academy is definitely doing some things and creating community to change lives and take relationships from surviving to thriving. So please share with the TMC listeners how they can connect with you.
Okay, I'm on Instagram. The Right Fit Marriage is my handle. I'm there. If you send me a DM, I will respond to you. I also am present on Facebook. We have the Facebook page, The Right Fit Marriage Academy. And we also have the group. It's a closed group. You have to ask to join. And then if you want to talk to me directly, you can send me an email, rightfitmarriage@gmail.com. And I would respond to you.
TMC, get connected and continue to learn to take your relationship from surviving to thriving. On behalf of the TMC community, we want to thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
Thank you very much. I'm so excited. I hope that this podcast will be the beginning of a relationship between the Right Fit Marriage Academy and TMC podcast. You're doing good work as well.
Thank you. So are you. Thank you for what you do.
So we hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button and turn on your notifications so you'll be notified each time we upload a video. And if you're listening on iTunes, rate the podcast and leave a review.
So we want to thank you for joining us today on TMC. Looking forward to hanging out with you again on next week as we continue to help you take your relationships from surviving to thriving. Bye. See you next week.